Welcome to the Critical Cast. My name is RuneSlinger87, where we always roll the dice and the stakes are always high. I'm a lifelong gamer, a DM, a digital adventurer. Well, today, I just want to have some fun. I know I've played a couple of games out there, Dark Souls, some Baldur's Gate 3, but today I kind of want to go back to my roots of Dungeons and Dragons. And something that I want to go ahead and touch on is essentially something that we talked about a little bit last the first cast, and really that was about how to go ahead and not pull your hair out with becoming a DM, or really truly what my message is, and I hope everybody takes the message. That is, don't overthink about what you're doing. Just because you're a DM, yeah, you're the guy with the answers. You're the guy, who is going to be able to give those scenarios and the answer the what ifs and all that kind of stuff. But just know that that is in your head. You already have that knowledge. Even if you need to think on it and recall, the point of my channel, or one of the points, I should say, is going to be the whole how do I go ahead and get myself prepared without pulling out my hair. And by you strategizing and listening to not only just my cast, but other podcasts too, for different advice, roll 20, or I'm sorry, yeah, roll 20. Um, that I can't give enough praise to that channel. Matt Mercer is always fun to listen to. I enjoy his sessions that he hosts and stuff like that. It's been a minute since I've checked into one, but I really enjoy it. I just have too many life things going on right now. But I think that anybody who wants to run their own session can do it. Now, there's going to be some people who want to stay as players, and that's okay. And there's some people that are going to want to exclusively DM. I tend to be more in that camp. However, I don't get me wrong. I do enjoy playing every now and then too. Uh, it just depends the kind of mood that I'm in. But going back to the topic of what makes sense, um, what I personally do, first and foremost, is I kind of have an understanding of where I want the story to go. And when I say that, I more mean my NPCs, right? Like, I have a fully flushed out world, a lot of NPCs. They are going to uh, have their own goals, their own missions. I don't like to control what my players do. If my players want to, you know, have an entire session where they're working on their skills, great. I can work with that. At that point, maybe we have a shortage in the town, and there's a supply run that needs to be done. Well, that gets them doing a campaign, or I'm sorry, a scenario, and it gets them adventuring. But it makes the supply runs much more interesting, and you kind of up the stakes a little. And mostly, most importantly, what you're not doing is railroading them into doing something that you want them to do, but they're not doing it. Anytime you have a session like that, and don't be discouraged if you periodically have that type of session here and there, because they're going to happen more than likely. I never deal in absolutes personally, but I would venture to say that I am almost absolutely positive that every person at some point in time had a campaign or a session that they railroaded, or that they felt that they did. Because that's the other thing that can happen. Sometimes you feel like you didn't do as good as you want. What I always recommend to anybody who, veteran or new dungeon master, get the feedback. Make sure that your players know that, hey, I'm not just looking for compliment fishing. I legitimately want to know, where do you see this campaign? Where do you want it to go? Get that feedback and then go ahead and implement it. Because nothing is dumber than getting feedback but just not using the feedback. Because remember, this is as much your game as it is their game. So you definitely kind of want to, retain players by being open and honest when it comes to rules and what you're comfortable with allowing, different missions and stuff like that. And if somebody says, "Hey, that was an amazing campaign. What did you like about it?" Like, these are questions that I ask my players uh, semi regularly now. Now I've been playing with the same group for many years, over a decade, less than two, but um, yeah, I think we're about 1.5. But anyways, so I kind of know where they're at. But the other thing that makes sense is, like, maybe they've been having a rough month and they want to go ahead and blow out some steam. And, you know, at that point, who doesn't love murdering goblins? You know? But that's my biggest tip is open up for feedback, accept it, embrace it, and act on it. Now, that doesn't mean every single piece of request is something that you want to go ahead and follow. Otherwise, you're going to end up overpowering somebody, or, it just derails the campaign. Um, but I really do think that by getting that feedback, it's going to teach you as a DM better than any podcast or any book or any instructions can teach you, because nobody can answer what every scenario is going to be like, which is exactly why you shouldn't even try, right? It's okay to have plans and contingencies for your contingencies, sure, but you don't want to be so focused on that you burn yourself out because you're trying too hard to answer for every single um, hiccup that might happen along your campaign. Uh, Whereas and I did that. I did that for my first year or so of being a dungeon master. Um, it's just within my nature. But as I've come to play more and more, what I like to do is I like to, like I said, flush out backstories for my NPCs. Every NPC, well, not every NPC, but the majority of NPCs in my campaigns will have a backstory. And I mean everything from the shopkeep to the blacksmith. Um, of course, if we're going to operate in a council members, everybody has some sort of backstory. And that backstory doesn't even need to be like a holy grail of an amazing venture that the NPCs took, right? Because that's another problem that I faced. Sometimes you kind of get lost in the trying to tell the story. And that's no fun for your players. Your players, they want to hear the story, but then they want to tell their own story. And telling their own story, if you have a long dialogue with yourself as a DM between two NPCs, there might be some information that needs to be given, but you don't need to tell a story between two NPCs talking to each other, right? Because at that point, you might as well be writing yourself a novel, because you're not playing D&D at that point. Really, what you want to do is get that scenario out there, and then go ahead and um, let the players take over. Let them start telling the story by their actions, right? You're the narrator, they're the actual players. Um, and I think that's something that a lot of DMs have a challenge with, and I know I personally didn't really understand that that was an issue for me until somebody pointed it out. They asked me if I like hearing myself, and the answer to that is, uh, not really. Public speaking is actually one of my harder skills in life to do. It really takes me forcing myself, um, to go ahead and make that. Now, do I like my voice to be heard, my opinions? Sure. That's why I do these casts, right? Like, to some degree. I mean, really, my big motivator is trying to help people, because what I don't want to see is people who are great DMs or even players, and they just don't want to do it because they're afraid that Dungeons and Dragons is like a lot. Because there are a lot of books, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of things to 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 have to know. But one of my other pro tips, utilize AI. Like, I cannot tell you how grateful I am when it comes to hosting my campaigns that I have ChatGPT. With ChatGPT, that helps me write the backstories, that helps me, keep track. I've made little handouts for myself, with notes as far as different events and things like that are going on in my world. Because, as I said in the first episode, I like to have the story going for my NPCs at the same time. So after I'm done with a session, even if the uh, NPCs that I'm dealing with weren't mentioned in the story, I still have something going on with them. And technology in today's day and age, it is much easier than the traditional pen and paper to go ahead and keep track of what your NPCs are doing. Um, some tools that I always use. First of all, I love D&D Beyond. Like, love, 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 love. Um, that I am a person that does like physicals, but I also really like quick search. Um, so I personally will go ahead and use D&D Beyond. Of course, I do have my books. I am also a physical dice person. I get it. There's apps. You can really get into the skill without going to a D&D shop or one of those types of places. But I like my physical dice, and boy, do I have a collection of them. But I think between D&D Beyond, ChatGPT, you can realistically start hosting a campaign. A lot of stuff is open source, because of Google and ChatGPT and things like that. So, if money is what's holding you back, um, I would say that there are ways around that, legally. Um, of course, you can always go the pirate the high seas of the internet, but why? Especially if you got Google and everything like that. If you have Google, Word, if you don't have Word, Google Docs, I've used all that. I went ahead and so many PDFs and so many different spreadsheets that I've made in order to go ahead and host my game. It does not need to be something where money holds you back. There's plenty of free open source. In today's day and age, if you have the internet, you can figure out anything. Uh, you know, I am not a handyman person at all, but I still changed out my toilet. And I don't mean like I replaced the seat or the tank. I mean the entire toilet. And I would have had no idea how to do that, but thank God for YouTube. It made it possible for me. Um, but yeah, don't let money hold you back from a good time like D&D. And when it comes to planning, like if you guys need help, there's plenty of communities that are willing to go ahead and help out. Anything from like Reddit, different groups on Facebook, whatever social media platform you use, there's always going to be others that are also doing that. So it's endless. But yeah, guys, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Again, RuneSlinger87. I'm going to be signing out here. Catch you guys next time. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, all those good things. We're going to keep these good times rolling. And hey, I'll catch you next time if the world doesn't end first.